Despite that sneeze, Dan is not sick today. He is not with us because of family matters. So it is just me. It is just Jay on SportsCenter with Jay and Dan, brought to you by our friends at McDonald's. And we're going to begin with the second week of PGA Tour golf. This is so exciting to have the PGA back. And if you get a chance to go to tsn.ca, you'll see a great article by our golf analyst Bob Weeks about Jordan Spieth. Remember a few years ago, it looked like Jordan Spieth was going to break all kinds of records, maybe even challenge Tiger long term. Since 2017, Spieth's game has really fallen off, but it appears that he might be getting his game back, as we found out at the RBC Heritage in beautiful Hilton Head, South Carolina on Thursday. First round action. Spieth started on the back nine. He actually triple bogeyed 12, but man, was he great on the front. From the fairway bunker on 6, inside 6 feet, that would lead to his 5th straight birdie. Then on the par 3 7th, about 200 yards. Spiethzy, as we like to call him. This will set up his 6th birdie in a row. He carded a 29 on the back nine. He was -5. He's 2 off the lead. Ian Poulter posted a video to Twitter this week of him getting a nasal swab for coronavirus. I've yet to get tested for coronavirus, but I understand very uncomfortable. Looks very uncomfortable. Didn't let it affect him during his round, though. 32 feet out on the 17th for birdie. No bogeys on Thursday. He's your clubhouse leader at 7 under par. Canadian Adam Hadwin. Canadian! Wearing a mic during his round. He's his own worst critic.
Oh, Chunk City. Get there.
Hadwin, not happy with his approach on 12, but he would save par. How about on 13?
Uh-oh. I'm pretty sure that's a penalty, what I just did there. I removed a rock, and then I went to remove what I thought was another rock. And as I grabbed said rock, it crumbled because it was actually sand. So I think, yeah. Okay, thanks. Well, not thank you, but yeah. Screw you, but thanks.
I love Adam Hadwin. 2-stroke penalty. He double bogeyed the hole, 1 over, 8 off the lead. Here's Jordan Spieth.
I've been making a lot of putts. I've been making a lot of birdies in my rounds, and I knew that, you know, if I could try and, my goal was to get 4 more. I told Michael on 13, I said, all right, that's over. Let's get 4 today and shoot under par for the day. And that's the new goal, and ended up getting a few more than that. But just tried to position myself each hole to have a decent look, and certainly was the case on that front nine. I really enjoy playing this golf course. It's one of the cooler courses, and I haven't had necessarily a ton of success, but I also haven't played it very often. So I'm looking forward to continuing on my back nine today.
Well, that round today was certainly the golf scorecard equivalent of social distancing, 37-29. And to answer your question, no, I don't think you can keep playing that way and count on. First of all, I don't think you expect to make a triple bogey in any round, and I don't think you expect to make 8 birdies over the course of the rest of the day. But I think what we're seeing from Jordan Spieth is starting to climb out of this funk he's been in for probably the better part of 3 years. His driver's not great. His putter is up 100 spots on the strokes gained from 2018 when he was really at his absolute best as a putter. But I think the biggest change we're seeing from Jordan Spieth is between the ears. Mentally, he is working very hard to try and stay in the moment, not let a bad hole take him out of a round. And that's what he did on Thursday. He just said, okay, I made a triple bogey, and I know a lot of guys are already 2 under, so I'm 5 back, but I'm going to try and make 4 or 5 birdies over the next few holes and try and get myself back into this tournament. A couple of years ago, he would have just chewed himself out audibly. You would have heard him chewing himself out. So there's a big change now in how he does things. And the other thing is, he hasn't been in contention for so long. Like last week on Sunday, that was all new for him again. He has to relearn some of these feelings again on these emotions. So that mental side of his game is what's really showing some signs of growth.
The PGA always needs stars. Jordan Spieth is one of them. Hopefully he continues it. Third round action is this Saturday at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. You can see it on TSN and on the network we call The Deuce. You know what's funny? All of our hockey insiders have cottages, all right? Darren Dreger, beautiful, majestic cottage, never been invited. Pierre LeBrun, gorgeous, fantastic cottage, probably somewhere in Quebec, never been invited there. So those guys are actually not present for this week's edition of Insider Trading because they're away at their cottages. So you ask yourself, well, who's the insider? It's Bob McKenzie, because he lives at his cottage year-round. Ha ha! Joke's on you, Bob. Here he is with James.
Your Lone Wolf Insider today is Bob McKenzie. Bob, as we make progress towards a return to play, there are still concerns. We've seen COVID cases going up in many U.S. states. So what happens if an NHL player tests positive over the next few weeks? Will we find out what team he's on? Will we find out the name of the player? How will they handle it?
Well, you're right, James. You look at the numbers going up in Florida, going up in Texas, numbers astronomically going up in Arizona. A lot of people asking questions. Have any of the Coyotes players tested positive? What about other NHL players who train in Arizona? So a lot of those questions are being asked. The short answer to your question is, at no time have we ever found out who the individuals are unless they want to make that public. The right to privacy for a player, especially on medical issues, is paramount for both the NHL and the NHLPA, as well as the member clubs. But things are changing in terms of the way the NHL, in conjunction with the PA, is going to announce positive COVID tests, certainly during phase 2 for the NHL and NHLPA. Now, in the past, and we saw it in the past week, where the Pittsburgh Penguins announced one of our players tested positive. That was it. You don't find out the player's name. We saw that with the Ottawa Senators, the Boston Bruins, the Colorado Avalanche, amongst others, when they had players who tested positive. What the league is going to do now is what the NBA did, I believe, starting last week, and that's more of a macro view, that instead of saying a player on this team tested positive, they're simply going to say an NHL player tested positive. Now, if there's more than one, there may be a time frame they're working to. Maybe this is a weekly report. No players tested. X number of players did test positive. So we don't know what the time frame will be. Some of the details are still being worked out. But the short answer to your question is, if a player tests positive from here on in, certainly during phase 2, we won't know what team he was playing for.
We have seen in all sports trying to come back or coming back dissenting voices, players who have real concerns about coming back. How many are in the National Hockey League? How many of these voices? How prominent, how vocal are these voices?
Well, you're right, James. I mean, more than 700 players in the National Hockey League, you're bound to have a lot of opinions. On an executive committee from the NHLPA conference call on Tuesday night, along with many other players who chose to be on that, there were some voices raised, the questions raised, fears, concerns, in terms of what's phase 3 going to look like, what's phase 4 going to look like, and players who absolutely are concerned about whether or not they want to come back and play. Now, I would suggest, just taking a guess here, the majority of players understand the need to come back is an important one. But there are a lot of players who do have concerns. And right now, the PA and the NHL can't answer a lot of those questions, specifically on what phase 3 and what phase 4 is going to look like, and may not be able to until the end of the month. I wouldn't say that this vocal minority is insignificant either. I think there are a number of players that do have concerns. But I think one of the things that the PA is looking to build into the agreements with the NHL on phase 3 and phase 4 is that if a player feels really strongly about it, they can opt out and they don't have to come back. So we'll see more on that as phase 3 and phase 4 gets finalized towards the end of this month, hopefully.
One of those questions they have is, what are the hub cities? Is there an update on that?
Famous question every week we get. It's probably going to be next week before we know. What I can tell you is this. The NHL's preference would be that a home team doesn't play in its own hub. That is to say, if Vegas were to be a hub, that the Vegas Golden Knights wouldn't play in Vegas, they would play in the other hub. That's the preference, and understand it is a preference. But it might not be possible, and here's why. It's entirely conceivable that both hubs could be in the West. So let's say it's Vegas and Vancouver, or Vegas and Edmonton. Distinct possibilities. That would mean one of Vegas or Vancouver would be at home if it was in one of those two cities. or one of Edmonton or Vegas would have to be at home, depending on where it goes. So we're going to wait and see what happens with next week. Toronto's still in the running, but Vancouver and Edmonton most certainly are as well. And the numbers are climbing COVID-wise in Vegas, but it's still very much a strong contender.
Appreciate this as always. Bob McKenzie with Insider Trading.
Let's be honest, Vegas is a lock. Mitch Marner back on the ice Thursday. A lot of talk around the Toronto Maple Leafs about two players who are not in Toronto yet. That would be Austin Matthews and Freddie Anderson. They were quarantining together in Arizona, walking dogs and such. Matthews is still in Zona. Anderson's in California. Hey, Mitch, you been asking your teammates to come home?
No, not at all. I mean, all this stuff's voluntary. They think that it's better for them to stay at home and do all their workouts and skating there, then I'm all for it. Obviously, it's something that very important need to do when you get back is quarantine. But at the same time, for those guys coming back, it's kind of hard. I don't know if they still have a condo or anything like that. I think whenever they're ready to come back, I think everyone's going to be ready for it. And, it's like I said, they're going to have to do that 14-day thing. So I'd rather them still just be wherever they are right now and doing their workouts and being back here sitting around for 14 days.
When we return, baseball. Do we have an update? Sort of. You're watching Jay and Dan. All right, we're walking. I'm walking. Dan is off today, so it's just me, and I'm sitting. And I'm thinking about baseball and the fact that it's been such an up and down week. If you're a baseball fan, at the beginning of the week, it looked like Rob Manfred basically said that he wasn't sure there would be baseball at all. Trevor Bauer sends a bunch of tweets, and he summed it up. The players want to play about 70 games. The owners want to play about 50 games to save money. Would they meet in the middle? That's what the owners want. The players still want to play that 70 games, as we found out on Thursday, because the union made a counter proposal to the owners, and that 70-game schedule was in it. Among other things, aside from the 70-game season, expanded playoffs in 2020 and 2021. Plus, universal DH in each of those seasons. So not just this season, but next season too. Union head Tony Clark said within the last 24 hours, Rob Manfred invited a counter proposal for more games that he would take back to the owners. We submitted that counter proposal today. So we continue to wait and see. You may have heard by now of Sherwood Park, Alberta's Chuba Hubbard, a star running back for Oklahoma State, had an incredible rookie season. A lot of people thought he'd declare for the NFL draft. He did not. He wanted to go back to the Cowboys. But then Cowboys head coach Mike Gundy wore an OAN t-shirt. Picture was out on social media. OAN is a far-right TV channel in the States. Chuba was not happy about that, and he said, and I quote, "Will not be doing anything with OK State until things change." Now, I should say that Chuba and his coach had a video conference together, and Chuba appeared on ESPN's First Take on Thursday to discuss the situation.
Did you speak out against your coach because he wore the T-shirt and because of what you feel and felt it represented? Or did you speak out, or was that the final straw per se? Were there other things that bothered you about how the coach needed to be educated and this was the final straw? Which one was it?
Maybe it's a little bit of both. I feel a lot of people need to be educated, including myself. And it's my job to educate myself first and then to educate people that aren't educated. And I feel that, a lot of things have happened in these last few days and even these last few years. But my job is just to, move forward and try to, make Oklahoma State, a better place.
Has there been any appeal or appeals to your personal loyalty by Coach Gundy, by any administrator, by anyone, to publicly stand with your coach and program in this moment?
Well, I think people have to get it twisted. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to belittle anybody. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to bring awareness to the injustice that's going on in our society. And I'm also trying to help kids, student athletes just like me, encourage them to use their voice and use their platform, because change can happen.
It's Who Delivered, presented by McDelivery. June the 18th of 2014, Clayton Kershaw throws a no-hitter against the Rockies in which he strikes out 15 batters with the only base runner reaching by error. In fact, only 3 balls left the infield all game. Clayton Kershaw, he delivered, just not in the playoffs, right, Dodger fans? It's normally our You Blew It segment, but I didn't mess anything up, so I'm just going to leave. Thanks for watching.